Tuff Tiger Talk Flash Report.
All right, shout out to the Tuff Tiger Talk Nation. I'm Big Q in this episode of Tuff Tiger Talk. Do me a service and hit that like button as we get into this broadcast, man. Kind of recapping what's going on with the Tigers, man. A lot of stuff going on with LSU right now. The portal is open, fully open. We got it up into the 16th. LSU is trying to make moves. We did receive our first commitment of the Kiffin era, not including the one from 2027. But ultimately, LSU secures its first transfer portal commitment from wide receiver Jackson Harris. Now, of course, this is, kind of talked about today. Former Hawaii wide receiver Jackson Harris committed to LSU per his social media post On3's Hayes Fawcett. Shout out to him. Per the Rivals Industry, ranks Harris as the 34th ranked wide receiver in the transfer portal and the number 212th overall prospect. LSU will be Harris's third school. Now, he's a California native, originally signed with Stanford out of high school before transferring to Hawaii. Now, Harris has taken his talents to the SEC as LSU begins its rebuild of the wide receiver room. He caught 49 passes for almost 1,000 yards in 2025. That yardage total put him at number 2 in the Mountain West. And Harris was a big play machine, nearly averaging 20 yards per catch, 2.79 yards per route for Mr. Harris. So that'll be much needed. And according to PFF, Harris's offensive grade was 83.2. That led the Mountain West wide receivers. So this is a big gift for LSU team that needs to compete a complete and total overall of his wide receiver room. Practically every contributor from LSU's 2020 class at receiver entered the portal or declared for the NFL draft. So here it is, 6'3", 205, 49 catches, 963 300 yards, and 12 touchdowns in 10 games. He is the first transfer commit to the Lane Kiffin era. So shout out to Mr. Harris for taking on this here to become LSU running. Like you said, man, we got to do it. So he will be the first of several wide receiver additions for LSU in the transfer portal, and they will be more to come. All right, anyway, and speaking about another commit, this was also a very good one that we wanted to kind of document, is that Lane Kiffin landed a commitment from the number 1 edge rusher in America. Now, of course, this is a future get in terms of what LSU is doing, but still, nonetheless, shout out to Zach Nagy from LSU Tigers on Sports Illustrated. Talked about 4-star edge rusher Jaden Bryant committed to Lane Kiffin and LSU Tigers. He revealed at the Under Armour All-American game on Saturday. Bryant, who's the number 1 edge rusher in the 2027 recruiting class, comes in as the top 50 overall prospect with the South Carolina native, locking in his pledge to LSU over a myriad of different powerhouse programs. He's 6'4", 240+, reeled in several offers from Nebraska, Georgia, LSU, Alabama, Clemson, among others, making up double-digit scholarship lists. Very sought-after prospect, and he lands with the Tigers. As a sophomore in 2024, he had 94 total tackles, 26 for loss. He had 18.5 sacks, 7 pass breakups, and 4 forced fumbles, where he blossomed to the national prospect with top schools extending offerships for him. He found himself the number 1 edge in America with LSU, catching his eye as a recent staff hire. The Lane train in full effect, and shout out to LSU defensive coach Sterling Lucas, who really went after this kid and landed him and brought him in to the building. So LSU program added defensive lineman Coach Sterling Lucas to the staff in Baton Rouge last week, and a lot of these people are following him over. And he poached Lucas from South Carolina, where he was on Shane Beamer's staff in Columbia, now making a move to the Bayou State. Lucas has emerged as one of the Southeastern Conference top defensive assistants, but also ascended into an elite recruiter across his time on the college scene. But for Bryant, the top-ranked edge rusher nation, he had Lucas serve as a primary recruiter of South Carolina. So this was a big get for LSU as we move forward. Now with Lucas joining the Tiger staff, the program is locked in its commitment for over final 6 schools consisting of LSU, Crimson Tide, Miami, Georgia, Texas A&M, and Clemson. LSU were labeled as a school at the top of the list, with the recruiting staff getting Bryant over the finishing line in the second commitment in 2027 recruiting cycle, for the Bayou Bengals joining 4-star quarterback Peyton Houston as a pair of pledges to this point. So not only is Coach Kiffin locking in this year's recruits, the transfer portal in 2025, but also in 2026. 2026, and then, of course, now locking guys down for 2027. So it's very interesting to know that Lane Kiffin keeping this thing going, baby. keeping it going and moving. All right, let's pivot to this, man. LSU transfer portal intel is Lane Kiffin and the staff host multiple players, and it continues to kind of move forward. Now, of course, we know that we had a bunch of players that left, that hit that transfer portal. I mean, it was a ton of them. We'll reprise that list in a second, but here's some latest on some of the targets, the transfer targets who are still moving forward. Some more rolling in. Former Boise State junior safety Ty Benefit visited LSU on Sunday. A source said Benefit was first team All Mountain West this past season. 107 total tackles, 8.5 tackles for loss, and 2 picks. He played in 41 games over the past 3 seasons, starting 33 times. Benefield has one more eligibility year left, though LSU retained redshirt sophomore safety Tamarcus Cooley, who decided to come back, and sophomore Deshaun Spears. It wants to add a safety to the transfer portal. So that was another point of contention that LSU wanted to do. It did not want to lose all of its talents, but you can see the coaches got busy and said, hey, man, listen, we need you here. Retaining Tamarcus Cooley and Deshaun Spears is big for LSU's defense, no doubt about it. And keeping up with the excitement of adding some of these guys to the list will definitely help our defense moving forward. Also, LSU hosted Old Dominion wide receiver Trey Brown. Confirmed this is a guy that caught 38 passes for 762 yards and four touchdowns this past season. After transferring from the junior college, he ranks 7th in the country with an average of 20.05 yards per catch. He's also set to visit Ohio State, another guy that visited LSU. And, of course, we talked about this. Other edge rushers in 27. How about this year? Top edge rush visits LSU. LSU begin to host its transfers this weekend. Penn State edge rusher Chas Coleman was on the list Saturday, confirming with the Advocate. Coleman is an Ohio native, was a 4-star recruit in the 2025 class, 6'4", 220 plus. Coleman recorded 8 tackles, 3 tackles for a loss and a sack while playing in 9 games as a freshman this season. He has 3 years of eligibility remaining. ESPN ranked him as the 9th overall player in this transfer portal. You can see Chas Coleman, shout out to that young brother, right there at LSU, you know, visiting and see what he can see here with the team. Now, former UC Davis redshirt freshman running back Carter Vargas also visited LSU on Saturday. The Advocate learned Vargas rushed for 445 yards, 5 touchdowns in 8 games this year before he suffered a season-ending injury. He also caught 10 passes for 177 yards and 2 touchdowns. Vargas said in a social media post he also has visits scheduled to Oregon, Cal, and Michigan State. He has 3 years of eligibility and would add needed depth at that position. So no doubt about that. At the time, LSU has hosted Hawaii wide receiver Jackson Harris. We talked about him. Harris had 49 catches, over 900 yards and 12 touchdowns in the breakout season after transferring from Stanford. He lately committed to LSU. We covered that. How about QBs? Visits include top QB, former Cincinnati quarterback Brian Sorsby arrived Saturday night after he visited Texas Tech. According to multiple reports, Sorsby is one of the top available players in the market and will come to LSU as an expected starter. A dual-threat quarterback, Sorsby has an ideal skill set for the run scheme by Kiffin and offensive coordinator Charlie Weiss Jr. So this is also something that's really big because Sorsby, a top prospect in the portal, a lot of people anticipating his NIL value at $3.3 million. According to what some are saying on X and a few other reports on the word on the street, so to speak. But he's definitely a guy to look at. Remember, LSU is losing its starting quarterback from this past season. He is hitting the transfer portal. And Brendan Sorsby, we had about there are other people that visit, but but LSU's really looking at Sorsby as a possible guy that might fit with what they got going on. But a lot of recruiting still needs to take place here. But I think his number is estimated at 3.3 as it stands. All right, finishing up, Clemson defensive lineman Trey'Dez Green has visited set for scheduled for Sunday to LSU. Sources confirmed after redshirt as a freshman, Green played 22 games, 6 starts over 2 years. He has 34 tackles, 5 tackles for a loss, 3.5 sacks. Green told On3 he also plans to visit Texas A&M, Southern Cal, and Miami. So that's a couple of players right there, and we need help all along that. And more wide receiver targets emerging soon. LSU will soon host Florida wide receiver Eugene Wilson after visits to Texas A&M this weekend. According to On3, Wilson played in 8 games and started 5 times as a redshirt sophomore this season. He had 239 yards worth of receiving, 3 touchdowns. Wilson has dealt with multiple injuries. He missed 4 games of the season because of an injury. In 2024, his season was cut short, giving him 2 years of eligibility. When he was healthy as a freshman, he had 61 catches for over 500 yards and 6 touchdowns. Very promising. LSU is also in the mix for Kansas State junior wide receiver J.C. Brown, and he's set to visit. On3 said Brown has 115 catches, over 1,900 yards, and 13 touchdowns during his career, while averaging over 17 yards per catch. Several SEC teams are interested in J.C. Brown. UAB transfer receiver Iverson Hooks has a visit scheduled with LSU between January the 7th and 8th, and has his agent confirmed with the Advocate. Hooks will visit Louisville on Sunday, and he has drawn interest from several other schools. He was a redshirt junior listed at 5'10", 175 pounds, broke out this year with 72 grabs for over 900 yards and 7 touchdowns. So these are a few of the players that LSU early on in the portal situation are looking at bringing in for Looksby. But do you have some of the top prospects are still, Coach Kiffin is looking to drive that point home, that he's looking to get some of these really good players here. Like in the wide receiver room, it's a lot of stuff going on that we'll need. But also keeping offensive weapons are key as well. Now, how about tight end Trey'Dez Green agrees to a deal with LSU football to come back. Now, Trey'Dez was big this past season. The previous year, he was climbing to a crescendo, and now Trey'Dez Green has decided to come back to LSU, and he won't be on the market for a tight end in the transfer window. Trey'Dez Green has agreed to a new deal with LSU. According to multiple reports, Green has recently expressed the desire to remain in Baton Rouge, but in today's day and age of collegiate sports, there are a few guarantees, and LSU's making him keep the tight end in Baton Rouge as a priority. LSU's staff worked with Green's representation on a new agreement, and the news of the two sides reached a deal. That's what Coach Kiffin tweeted out. And over the last few days, you can see LSU's been able to convince a lot of its talent, its college veterans, to come back for what could be a special year with Lane Kiffin's first year. Over the last few days, LSU has been able to convince star linebacker Whit Weeks, cornerbacks DJ Pickett and PJ Woodland, along as Jakeem Jackson, defensive tackle Dominic McKinley, and safety Deshaun Spears to stay in Baton Rouge. Now, Green is the biggest domino to fall on the offensive side of the ball for LSU at this point, as Kiffin is known for his offensive schemes and philosophies. He will love Kiffin's offense. This past season, it was Green's best to date: 33 catches, 443 yards, and led LSU with 7 touchdowns. So that is also big to land a big physical tight end like Trey'Dez Green back to the fold. So where does that bring us right now, ranking LSU's football 5 biggest transfer portal needs as we go forward? So with that being said, the Tigers have plenty of needs. A handful of LSU players are hitting the portal. A few were declared for the draft. LSU fell short of expectations. But with Kiffin coming in, here's LSU's 5 biggest transfer portal needs as the portal enters full swing. Quarterback, obviously the top need. They need a quarterback. A couple of them, actually, and that's true. Shout out to Sports Illustrated LSU. And this is what they said. Michael Van Buren is the only QB, and he actually transferred. Van Buren decided to transfer on out, and he hit in the portal. So they really need to pick up steam in this position. Even if Buren, he's gone, LSU's big name hunting at the QB position. Kiffin and offensive coordinator Charlie Weiss should be an attractive pair for a QB looking to boost his draft stock. The two have built some of the most prolific offenses in the sport. LSU has already been tied to Arizona State's QB Sam Leavitt and Cincinnati quarterback Brendan Sorsby, both players among the top transfer in the class, and are being pursued by several major schools. LSU will have to pay up to land one of them. If LSU misses there, the Tigers wait to see what happened with QB Trinidad Chambliss. Now, we know Chambliss is fighting for an extra year of eligibility. Word on the street is that he wants to find or follow Lane Kiffin to Baton Rouge, which would be a huge get if possible. But we'll see how it all works out, because you can't really gamble at the QB position. This is going to be big. One of the big things that they can actually do in terms of Lane Kiffin's offense going forward. Sam Leavitt's a good quarterback. I like Brendan Sorsby, but there are a lot of QBs in this portal that they can kind of lend to, but it'll be big. Whoever his quarterback is going into the season, they got to be a two-way guy that can move, that can throw and run. That'll directly benefits Lane Kiffin's style of play. Wide receiver, LSU wide receiver room needs a complete rebuild. The room struggled last year. LSU is tied to the portal wide receivers, including Terrell Anderson, who's reportedly set to visit LSU. Anderson would be a good start, but the Tigers need more. Wouldn't be a surprise if LSU took as many as 5 transfer wideouts. They're going to load the room up. they're going to load the room up with the transfer guys. And you're right, about 4 or 5 of those guys wouldn't be too many. Like I said, we lost a lot of talent there, especially in the wide receiver room. They're talking about overhauling the wide receiver room family. The offensive line room is not as good. It's not as good either. And speaking of which, that's the third most ranked position according to the article. They witnessed a portal exodus on offensive line. Most of the LSU's contributing offensive linemen from last year entered the portal. The unit was one of the worst LSU offensive lines in recent memory, but now the cupboard is bare, which is cool for new offensive line coach Eric Walford. That was good. That line last year was pathetic and underperformed. And for Coach Kiffin to have success running the ball and protecting the quarterback, we definitely need more talent at that side of the ball. So we'll see what they do. It's hard to find quality linemen in the portal. The best way to build an offensive line is to sign a bunch of talented high school recruits, in which we're adding that to use the portal to fill the gaps in between. But LSU won't have a choice. The Tigers will need to find 2 or 3 quality linemen in the portal. You're going to need to see if you can find you some starters that at least stabilize position, right, with that. Because, the cupboards are bare, wide receiver and offensive line, and quarterback too. So that's 3 key positions on your offense that all need to gather talent quickly. So it's going to be a little bit before he can put together the exact room he wants, but because of the bareness of it. But Lane Kiffin is a guy that I believe who can make it happen. And then, of course, the 2 more positions, defensive end, LSU defensive end defense remains in a good spot. Blake Baker, along with most of the defensive staff, is back. That was key for player retention on that side of the ball. LSU is losing some of its people. Patrick Payton and Jack Pybarn, both were top guys in the 2025 class. Tigers who missed their experience on the edge. LSU returns any experience at the defensive end. Gabe Rutherford will be back, but he missed the final 2 months because of an injury. And Chaz Coleman is one of the top-ranked defensive ends in the portal. LSU is reportedly making a strong push to get the Penn State defensive end to bring him in on that side. And, of course, the tight end position. Trey'Dez Green does return, but he needs depth behind him. Green will be a junior. He will He'll be off to the NFL next year, but Kiffin and company need the younger tight end to add depth. LSU could be in the market for physical blocking tight end, complement Green's dynamic player, pass rushing, or player style. So we need a pass catcher, a guy that can pair with Trey'Dez Green. And like I said, the portal is going to be heavy, especially on the offensive side for Lane Kiffin. You best believe that there are going to be guys, several players that will follow him over from Ole Miss on the offensive side of the ball to LSU. We know Trinidad Chambliss is a guy. We don't know if he'll get that extra year of eligibility. He hired an attorney for that. And, man, we'll just have to see how all that works out. But, man, in the end, boy, I tell you, man, LSU, it's we got a lot of stuff to do. But it was good seeing us get a lot of those some of our players are defensively back. But, man, oh, man, the offensive line is something that we really have to focus on moving forward. All right, let's hit another one, fam, as we keep this going on Tuff Tiger Talk. Y'all hit that like button, man. We talking LSU in the building. Shout out to NOLA.com, Tom's Picayune. LSU offensive lineman withdrew the transfer portal and will stay for the Tigers, which is big, right? LSU redshirt offensive tackle Weston Davis entered the portal Sunday morning, but it was brief. Davis withdrew his name within an hour of appearing in a database, and according to multiple reports, he planned to stay at LSU this upcoming season. He came to terms with LSU and wanted to have his name removed from the transfer portal before it showed up, according to reports by Matt Moscona. Shout out to Matt. And Davis, who played 12 games this season with 10 starts, LSU replaced him at the right tackle for 2 games with redshirt freshman Ori Williams, who later hit the portal. But Davis regained his spot. So a 4-star recruit back in 2024 from Beaumont, Texas. He'll be the number 111th overall prospect in the class and the top 10 offensive tackle on the 24/7 Sports composite ranking. He flipped from Texas A&M to LSU late in the recruiting process. So LSU has 2 starting offensive linemen who have remained with the team to this point, in Davis and redshirt center Braylon Moore, as well as 5 backups, and 2 incoming freshmen. So he has to sign multiple transfer who can start and provide depth. Remember, the 7 LSU offensive linemen who have entered the portal since it opened on January the 2nd was Williams, redshirt freshman Ethan Callaway, freshman Carius Kern, redshirt sophomore Paul Mubunga, redshirt sophomore Tyree Adams, redshirt freshman Cohen Eccles, and redshirt sophomore DJ Chestnut. LSU has lost Right guard Josh Thompson, a fifth-year senior who has exhausted his eligibility. So as you could tell, we got some work to do right there to build up the line. Braylon Moore and Davis stand around, and we'll see what we can do in the portal. But best believe they'll get attempt to get two starters out of the portal and some guys behind in depth. So 2 or 3 guys, I could see them riling up in the portal. So this is going to be one of those situations where LSU's not playing around. They're going to hit this portal hard. They're going to be very judicious and hitting everything that they possibly can to move this thing in the right direction. So these are a few of the things to kind of go over with you, family. Then finally to kind of span and do another go. We'll hit you with the this information right here to make sure we all lined up. Now I mentioned some of this early in the show, but we're gonna make sure we cover it to its totality. That we talked about Benny Field, a safety from Boise State, getting a look at. He visited LSU football, hosting Old Dominion wide receiver Trey Brown. Right, he's also in the mix with Ohio State. He has 2 years of eligibility remaining. He managed over 38 catches, over 700 yards and 4 touchdowns, and 20 yards per catch for the Old Dominion wide receiver Trey Brown. Remember, we have to bring in multiple people at that position. And then we also talk about the commitment of early in the broadcast about us landing wide receiver Harris, Jackson Harris from Hawaii. That was the first person to agree wide receiver-wise, which is big. We also talked about Tamarcus Cooley returning back to the team, and also we talked about LSU as well with him. That's a very positive thing. LSU football is also in the running for Florida defensive end Jordan Castell, who's down to 3 schools. LSU's among them, according to LSU, battling Ole Miss in Kentucky for Castell. He plans to visit all 3 schools, starting with Ole Miss Sunday, followed by Kentucky Monday, before heading to Baton Rouge on January the 8th. Now, Castell had 34 games for the Gators and over 160 career tackles. We talk about Michael Van Buren not finding a spot here in LSU and him hitting the transfer portal. He had a decent few games for LSU, showing some dual threat ability, but obviously not the quarterback for Lane Kiffin's offense as we move forward. So these are just a few of the people to talk about for LSU as well. Florida transfer Eugene Wilson set to visit as well. Texas A&M will get to visit him first, but LSU will host Florida transfer wide receiver Eugene Wilson over the coming days. On3 is the source for this, that in 3 years with the Gators, the playmaker amassed over 1,000 yards on over 100 catches with 10 touchdowns. We also talked about Caden Durham. He did hit the pool as well, the portal, because of he wanted to go. We were waiting to see what he does, but he finished his career, and we love Caden Durham down here. Sorry to see him go, but Harlem Berry is the future. He returns to Baton Rouge. He agreed to come back. He has a future at the position. So we'll see what goes on there. And probably Durham will follow Frank Wilson to Ole Miss. So that's probably what's going on, which is fine. We'll get more of them than they'll get of us, as well. So we talked about Vargas. We also talked about Trey'Dez Green, just to recap everything. We also talked about the Penn State transfer that LSU is interested in. Here's another one. LSU football looks to land a visit from North Carolina State transfer wide receiver Xavion Thomas. He announced he was entering the draft. Reports surface of LSU trying to get the transfer in for a visit. Transfer wide receiver Terrell Anderson to come in for a visit. So soon after Xavier Thomas announced his recruiting, his position to take the league, Terrell Anderson was the guy that they started looking at. So Anderson put up over 600 yards and 39 catches, 5 touchdowns, has 2 years of eligibility remaining. So there you go. And, of course, a couple other guys to kind of talk about there as well is the pair of transfers that are set to visit Kentucky, and offensive lineman Tyree Adams and defensive lineman Ahmad Brill. LSU is also in contact with McNeese State transfer veteran McNeese State cornerback Javon Davis, who's been in contact with LSU according to 24/7 Sports. 6 feet, 180 plus pounds. A defensive back that's played in 30 games, has been a starter across 4 seasons at McNeese. He got Kentucky and LSU high on his list. This is another player that LSU is talking about. And, of course, we mentioned Brandon Sorsby and about what's going on with him. Are they having conversations about keeping him in fold as well? And, of course, these are the list of players that I talked about that are on the outs that we made mention on. Van Buren, Durham, Lindsey, Kyle Parker hit that window as well. And then you see all the offensive linemen, Kern and all these other guys are hitting the street as well. Quarterback Trey People, running back Caleb Jackson is gone as well. Ahmad Bro, Jelani Watkins, Ashton Stamp, so on and so forth. So that's a few of the names. But like I said, man, the success to them except when they face us. But the reality at the end of the day is that we here at LSU are doing everything we can to build a team. I think it will be interesting going forward how Coach Kiffin builds this thing forward. It will not be easy, to be honest with you. But listen, they're willing. They have the resources, and that's why Kiffin's here, because of the resources LSU is providing for its coaching staff. The NIL money was a part of it, the negotiation. Okay, I like you paying me $90 million over 7 years. But what about the NIL money? It takes money to build the team the correct way. And guess what the LSU team did? The administrators, the boosters said, man, whatever it takes to win another title. So if Lane Kiffin does this right, he can win multiple titles for LSU. And it's about to be an exciting and fun brand of ball, even though I'm not that crazy about Lane Kiffin, but you can't deny his offensive prowess and how he can get up and down the damn field. And then I'm just so enthused about the combination of his offense mixed with the fact that you bring Blake Baker's defense with Lane Kiffin's offense. All lights out, man. I expect them to compete fast next year. I don't think there's going to be much of a honeymoon period for Lane Kiffin. That's the real thing. But I think he's crazy enough to take this challenge because he loves the pressure. Another thing to mention is that LSU knows that Lane Kiffin is not larger than LSU football. LSU football has won national championships, multiple championships across time. Ole Miss, where he was from, the team he's coming from, never won a national title. He was larger than the school himself. And coming to LSU, he has to establish himself. He doesn't have a championship as a head coach. This is a place where you can win championships. And could this be a situation where Lane Kiffin can become like a Nick Saban? I ask you that. That'll be my last question before I leave this episode of Tuff Tiger Talk. Also, feel free, fam, hit the like button. But let me leave y'all with this question for the Tuff Tiger Talk faithful and the LSU football family. Do you think that this could be a situation where Lane Kiffin could produce multiple championships similar to what a Nick Saban did? Could he build a pipeline here over the next several years where we can win multiple championships similar to what we seen Nick Saban do in Alabama? Remember, that would have been our situation if the NFL hadn't came calling to get Lane Kiffin away from LSU. And ultimately he coached for 2 years in Miami, then went back to college with Alabama and then built them up. And then they were able to start winning many titles. Is that a scenario that you guys see for LSU? Do we finally get that funk out of here? Do we become that type of team again where we win a national title similar to what we seen Nick Saban do? Can we be that way? Now, I know Nick Saban's a different coach than Lane Kiffin. We know that. But in the end, could it be a similar situation where over the next 7 years, we win 3 titles out of the 7 years? Y'all put it in the comment section. Let me know how y'all feel about it. And I think because this could be interesting. So anyway, with that being said, man, that's all I got for y'all tonight. I will be back on our next stream to keep recapping all the latest recruits. I done got y'all guys all caught up on everything dealing with the team. I know I ain't really mentioned the stuff about Ole Miss and whether Lane Kiffin is going to let his coaches coach at Ole Miss based on what I got right now, that he's not. A lot of these guys have to help LSU recruit their talent to bring them in here. And listen, what I say to Ole Miss, shout out to Evan Terrell, who's an Ole Miss guy. But what I got to say to the Ole Miss Rebel people is that, remember, Lane Kiffin offered to coach the Ole Miss Rebels for the rest of the season going forward. He offered to coach them. He offered to coach them, and they told him no, and then been about the business to kick him out because, according to some of the information, they did not want him to have an influence on the players that he himself had brought there for them to win. So I think that it's incredibly off-putting, and it's supposed to be about the players and all this kind of stuff. But business is business, man. Ole Miss made a decision to say, nope, you got to go. And so they made Golden the guy, kick Kiffin out, so Kiffin can give a little stick back here to him, because he needs these coaches to recruit talent for this transfer portal up until the 16th. Ole Miss, when they did that, they have to have had a backup plan for guys that step up from behind, or whoever's the assistant of these coaches are, to take over. If they can't do that, oh well. You should have let him coach. He offered to do it, and they said no and kicked him on up out of there. And now people are pointing fingers at him saying he wrong for what he did. No, he made a decision to leave a college to go to a better college for legacy purposes, you know. So we'll see how it all ends on the other side of it, man. But remember, you blame that on your athletic director on that. You wouldn't be in that spot. Anyway, that's all I got. I'm going to holler at y'all on the next one. Y'all hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. If you're not a member of the Tuff Tiger Talk show, man, hit that damn sub button, please. You're repping with one of the diehards in the LSU football family, man. So hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and the share button, and I'm going to holler at you on the next Tuff Tiger Talk. Much love. Peace. Go Tigers.